consumption as an alternative to expensive, dirty, and less safe petrol and diesel, while facilitating investments to enable its distribution and manufacturing of components and promoting regulation to drive its growth and value creation. As you will all agree with us, the PCNGI has been one of the central initiatives of Mr. President to not only lower the cost of living for Nigerians, but to create jobs and opportunities via investments and to improve productivity by enhancing connectivity, leveraging Nigeria's competitive advantage in gas for economic development. Beyond these, the initiative has consequential impact on reducing the cost of governance for key government agencies that adopt compressed natural gas for transportation and their logistics, while enhancing government revenue by increasing domestic utilization of gas for Nigerians instead of flaring it. As you know, by the provisions of the Petroleum Industry Act, the federal government is the owner of all gas, so any utilization of gas means dollars in our coffers. The other consequential impacts include cleaner air and environment for our country, as it enables us to meet our nationally determined estimates under the Paris Climate Accord by eliminating flares and replacing toxic emissions of crude oil-based fuel products. An impact on the health of our population, the impact of CNG, the presidential CNG initiative cannot be overemphasized. In the past year, the PCNG has recorded a number of successes. If you recall, last May 29, 2024 was the official rollout of the program after many months of planning and strategizing, which included the rolling out of industry standards, incentives approved by Mr. President, and engaging the public and private sector prior to that rollout. The achievements that we've been able to record in this last year, we are coming about the last 1 year when we initiated our rollout, about May 29 of last year, is well evident around us. I would like us to watch one or two things in the rollout testimonial video before I get back to my address. Can we get the audio? I think the audio is absent here. Thank you. Perhaps I can talk through the videos, as maybe we'll return to it at the end of this presentation. I'm sure they'll fix. It's okay now? Okay. All right. No doubt, after an extensive and intensive stakeholder engagement and public awareness campaign that we began May to November of last year, the PCNGI most important achievement was to convince the private sector to invest their own critical funds alongside the government's investment upon stimulation of demand through the commercial vehicle by commercial vehicle operators and private vehicle users alike. In that last 1 year, we've attracted $491 million of investment to auto CNG, which has created 9,000 direct jobs and 75,000 indirect ones. To this end, the Nigerian conversion capacity was to capacity of vehicles from pure petrol and diesel to turn them to biofuel vehicles was also raised by almost 3,000%, with more than 200 new conversion centers established in this past year. From just mere 7 that existed in Nigeria when the program started by the private sector, we today have over 242 conversion centers, to be exact, across Nigeria, mostly established by the private sector. This has delivered 3,000 new employments to technicians, occasioned also by the launch of the commercial incentive program. If you recall, gentlemen of the press, the conversion incentive program, as announced by the President in August 2024, at the back of the nationwide protest on the cost of living expenses, was to enable 1 million free or subsidized conversions of certain class of vehicles, especially public commercial vehicles, ride shares, and vehicles owned by ministry departments and agencies, to be done by the PCNGI. About 22,000 conversion kits were immediately procured by the Federal Ministry of Finance and began to be delivered in October 2024. Already, by the end of this quarter, we're on course to already have converted 10,000 vehicles under this program. More importantly, the program has been expanded by the PCNGI to also enable deep discounts for public servants and finance the balance of costs by converting these vehicles, working with another major initiative of Mr. President, which is the credit core. We will soon launch that initiative along the lines of enabling public sector unions members to be able to convert their vehicles, leveraging credit core and deep discounts provided by PCNGI. If you also recall, to demonstrate the efficacy of the CNG and EV platform, CNG buses and tricycle as well as EV buses were procured on our behalf by the Federal Ministry of Finance. A total of 655 buses were procured. To date, 421 of those and 36 EV buses has been delivered, with deployment of about 405 buses, either as part of the settlement of terms with the NLC and TUC as part of the wage negotiation engagement, or directly to public unions, transport unions, being run commercially in partnership with the Federal Ministry of Transportation, or through partnership with state transport unions companies that was also launched last year. The renewed Hope Mass Transit Scheme, launched during the Yuletide period, provided free or discounted rides during that time. This has now been continued commercially, and we will soon launch the same for tricycle as soon as we sort out the last mile gas infrastructure scheme. A pilot of the tricycle component of this scheme is now being launched this week in Lagos, and we look forward to expanding that program beyond Lagos. Speaking about the last mile gas infrastructure scheme, we are aware that as a result of our successful awareness campaign last year and the groundbreaking initiatives like the commercial incentive program that pay the private sector to convert certain classes of vehicles, especially public mass transit vehicles, to CNG, there has been an increasing visible gap in CNG availability at the last mile. We note the longer queues in some locales, but we can assure you that this is temporary. If you recall that about this time last year, if you visited any CNG station in Nigeria, there were hardly any customer, and there were only about 11 of them. But today, there are about 63 of them, and they are all super full. I think more than anything, that speaks to the success of our initiative in this last year. Of course, with solving old problems, there will be new ones, and I believe we are up for the challenge. The influx of CNG trucks as our industries invest, and the over 30,000 CNG conversions undertaken by the private sector by itself, having quadrupled the CNG fleet of Nigeria, naturally will put pressure on our gas infrastructure. But the PCNGI is not relenting in providing solutions. First, we launched an aggressive last-mile gas infrastructure scheme, which we call the Refueling on Lending Program, that will provide equipment at cost for refueling to key conversion centers and refueling partners. 25 sites are built to benefit, and 15 states are slated for this. Already the first site in Kwara State is live, and Kogi, Ekiti, Rivers, and Abuja will soon join them before May 1st, 2025. By June 12, we shall have Kaduna, Abia, Enugu joining the fray, with Niger, Kano, and Benue following shortly thereafter. To further bolster this base infrastructure, we have co-opted our private sector partners to deploy over 150 new refueling locations in the next 18 months. NNPC have already deployed 12 sites, with 8 to go this quarter, making it 20. An approval for additional 100 sought and secured for the next 18 to 24 months to be deployed across the country. NIPCO has imported equipment for 32 daughter stations, with 22 in operation and 8 under construction. Bovas has 8 under construction, AOI Shafa has completed 1 and 9 under construction. Entities like Ibile Oil are developing additional 8 sites. MBH and Mikano are also investing in not just mother stations, but also, not just daughter stations, but also mother stations. Just this week, I was privileged to visit the largest mother station under construction in Nigeria by Mikano in Ogun State that will have 12 dispensing arms for large trucks. We also visited Port Harcourt refinery, where there was additional opportunity for us to expand gas infrastructure deployed to the last mile for trucks that are plying the One, Port Harcourt refinery to Indorama route. All of these have potential to drive down food and goods inflation rate by reducing costs by up to 80%. To this end, the diesel retrofit and conversion program will be launched this year by the PCNGI to accelerate this process. As a result of this aggressive last-mile gas infrastructure strategy, we will have been able to expand CNG penetration from 5 states to 17 states by June 2025. This is built to expand to 24 to 30 states by the end of the year. We also last week signed on Friday to invest in the mini LNG at Ajaokuta, the mini LNG Arete, to expand CNG penetration to the north of Nigeria. As you recall, because gas is primarily present in the south of Nigeria today, and the last point of landing for gas via pipe today is at Ajaokuta, it's very important that we understand that we needed to drive CNG and gas penetration not beyond the north-central states where it is currently, into the northwest and northeast. Our investment in mini LNG Arete will help to facilitate that. Gas will be liquefied at Ajaokuta and then trucked across to different regasification plants, which are LCNG plants across the land, that will then be able to provide gas to vehicles as well as to industries and even for power. We will achieve the leap in penetration via capacity development as well as infrastructure deepening strategy that we also have seen the PCNGI cooperating closely with the Federal Ministry of Education and the Midstream Downstream Gas Infrastructure Fund, MDGIF, of the NMDPRA. Through this cooperation, we are committed to gasifying our academic and rural communities, starting first with 20 federal universities. This is in addition to all of the gas penetrating infrastructure I had already talked about, the 25 that we're directly on-lending ourselves, the over 150 that the private sector is doing, and of course this will now be an additional 20 that will be done at federal universities. Through this university program, discounted conversion for staff and members of these universities and surrounding institutions will be made available, as well as affordable CNG transportation on buses and tricycles to be operated by the PCNGI private sector partner, Femadec Nigeria Limited, pre-qualified by the Midstream Downstream Gas Infrastructure Fund, who will be leveraging MDGIF. The first 6 universities are already built to be launched at the end of this quarter. Integrating CNG transportation in our universities will not only ease cost of living for our students, teachers, and support staffers, but also enable training and capacity building, as these sites will host conversion centers and training programs that will be accredited in the planned TVET initiative of the Federal Ministry of Education, which is set to launch soon. Of course, the gas refueling infrastructure to be rolled out in these universities will also fill the last mile infrastructure gap that I've spoken about previously. Beyond the university program, the PCNGI is committed to capacity development of the sector. We trained over 1,500 technicians last year, and we're on track for another 5,000 this year. This will ensure that Nigeria's CNG sector is underpinned by strong local content and capacity. Active training and collaboration with national institutions like the Nigerian Army and Police is ongoing, as well as institutions like the Nigerian Institute of Transport Technology under the Ministry of Transportation, the Nigerian Automotive Design and Development Council under the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, SMIDAN, as well as NASENE. Speaking about institutional capacity, we recognize the initial safety skepticism of the public, and we have responded to it by collaborating with the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Gas to develop an end-to-end monitoring of not just CNG but all gas vehicles through a collaborative initiative of the 4 principal regulators in the sector, which are the Standard Organization of Nigeria, the National Automotive Design and Development Council, the Nigerian Midstream Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Agency, and the Federal Road Safety Commission. Together, we are launching the Nigerian Gas Vehicle Monitoring System that will ensure only properly converted or inspected in case of OEM vehicles are refueled at our gas stations and operate on our roads, enforced by NMDPRA and FRSC respectively. At this point, let me be clear that the sole safety incident that occurred in Benin last year was a result of economic saboteurs engaged in illegal fabrication of CNG cylinders, and they were arrested by the police. With NGVMS in place, that incident will be avoided, as only properly labeled and accredited vehicles with certified tanks will be able to be refueled. The necessary steps to launch NGVMS are ongoing, collaborating with the Honorable Minister of State Gas, and we expect it to be in place fully by the end of the year, working with the 4 agencies I previously iterated. We won't relent in ensuring the safety of lives and investments of participants in the sector. This was why we prioritized regulatory standards issuance from the get-go in March 2024, working with agencies, especially SON and NADDC, that developed the occupational standards to ensure the proper training of conversion technicians and the accreditation of conversion workshops, which they've launched. We enjoin all participants to ensure full compliance with regulatory requirements on safety and security. With respect to our gas availability strategy, let me use this opportunity to commend the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Company Limited, NNPCL, as well through the Nigerian Gas Marketing Limited, the Gas Aggregation Company of Nigeria, and Nigerian Midstream Downstream Regulatory Authority, for working together with us to make the mobility CNG gas supply market a reality by signing off on the mobility CNG framework for upstream and downstream, which will immediately unlock about 100 mm of gas a day for auto CNG at the preferential price, inlet price approved by the NMDPRA. This market is built to go live with phase 1 in 2 to 4 weeks and will ensure every vehicle needing CNG will get it at the preferential price approved by Mr. President while eliminating arbitrage leakages. We cannot complete this briefing without first thanking Mr. President for his support, as well as critical ministries, including the Ministers of Finance and Petroleum Gas, and our steering committee led by Dr. Zach Adediji, the chairman of FRS. We also thank you, the press, for reporting well and trusting in the capacity of this program to transform lives in line with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's GCFR's renewed hope agenda. And we can assure you that we are committed to this cause. God bless you all, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Engineer Michael Oluwagbemi, Program Director and CEO of the Presidential CNG Initiative. While you're putting your thoughts together on the questions, let me introduce members of the team of Peace CNGI. Before I do that, let me also introduce our own presidential communication team members. By the right of Mr. Ononuga is the senior special assistant to the president on engagement, Linda Akigwe. By the right of Linda is the special assistant to the president on public affairs, Mr. Aliyu. And on the floor is senior special assistant to the president on media and publicity, Mr. Tope Ajayi. Beside him, senior special assistant to the president on public engagement, Mr. Frederick Aliyu. And having a discussion with Tope is senior special assistant to the president on digital media, Mr. Shegun Dada. With engineer Oluwagbemi, by the left is engineer Zayan Tombori Yabo is the coordinator of regulations. And by his left is engineer Tari Mayor Bright. She's the subnational coordinator. And Mr. Jide Awolowo is the investment coordinator. Sitting with the media guys, I have two others. Kenechukwu Chukwu is the technical advisor to the program director on stakeholder management and public engagement. And engineer Wale Suleiman is the senior or STA to the program director. On this note, we can go straight to the questions. Punch 1, Arise 2, Radio Nigeria 3, Channels 4. For the first batch of questions. Punch 1, Arise 2, FRCN 3, and 4, Channels Television.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Stephen Angbulu. I write for the Punch newspapers. My question is directed to you, the DG, on the safety incident that happened in Benin, we understand that for cases like this, where there's one, there's more, right? And you talked about the activities of saboteurs, people illegally putting these things together. Are you on the lookout at the moment for other similar plants or centers where these activities are happening, and what have you uncovered so far? Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adeso Omoro, and I work with Arise News. Well done. But I recall that at the start of this initiative, at the rollout, cost was a factor. A lot of Nigerians didn't understand why it was expensive. At that time, we were told it was because we didn't have the expertise, and so it would be expensive. Almost 1 year down the line, how much is it officially to really convert? Just on Friday, a colleague of mine approached me and said he had converted his car with 300,000 naira, although he now spends less than 3,000 naira every week to work using the CNG. So how much is it officially to convert? And what are you doing around saboteurs when it comes to costs? Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lanre Lasisi. I report for Channels Television. Sir, just as you said in your address, one of the major places the president was actually hoping this initiative will address is the issue of transportation for the common people. 1 year down the line, what is the impact this is having on transportation on the ground? Outside the, I know you mentioned the issue of the festive period. That's when we appear to get it. But yes, we have a lot of rollout of infrastructure. We have this, that, but the issue of transportation, how is that being addressed and affected? Thank you very much.
Go ahead, sir. The fourth, what should have been the fourth question has been swallowed up by the second question. Okay. So we have three on this package.
Okay. Thank you very much. To the first question, in terms of the safety and what we are doing, I think I answered it in my address by stating very clearly that we believe that we needed to have a strong monitoring system in place, not as a fire brigade reactionary approach. It should be part of the system where we have a system where once you are registered or once you are converted, you are registered in a database. And it is only those people on that database that get refueled to avoid what we had. So to answer your question, we've been doing a lot of work. We've already set up, and Engineer Zayan, to my left, has been leading that effort, working with all of the regulatory agencies and coordinating them. This is a multi-regulatory approach, right? And we are not just focused on CNG, because we believe that if an accident happens, the public will not differentiate whether it is a CNG vehicle, or LNG, or LPG. Gas vehicle is a gas vehicle. So what we're doing is that we are capturing all of them under the Nigerian gas vehicle monitoring system. And we're bringing all of the relevant regulatory agencies on board. That requires, of course, policy pronouncement that needs to be happened at the ministerial level. That requires close coordination of the regulatory agencies. We are not regulators, we are only facilitators of this initiative, and we've been working with them. A demo is already in place. They've already done a demo project. We've already tested it. So I believe in the next 60 days, you'll see traction with respect to rolling that out. There will also be considerable work that has to be done with respect to grandfathering existing vehicles. At least there are about 50,000 vehicles, either trucks or cars today, that are using CNG. We must have a way to inspect them and bring them into that regulatory space once we roll this out. So this is work that has been going on. But of course, in the immediate, as soon as we saw that incident, we of course set out our team working with the Nigerian police. We were able to identify 1 or 2 market spaces between Benin and Aba. To be honest, Benin has been a long-term user of CNG before any other part of Nigeria. So you expect that if this kind of thing is going to happen, it's going to happen around that area, because people are used to CNG, and some of them, familiarity does bring contempt, so, and some of them start disrespecting energy, but it's still energy, whether you like it or not, and you cannot disrespect it or misuse it. So we've done sufficient surveillance of that region, and some intelligence did come across when they were doing that investigation, and some of those areas were visited and shut down. The 3 people that were arrested have been charged to court. So I think also deterrence has goes a long way when people understand that if you do this, you're going to be treated with the full force of the law. So all of these combined together, I believe that it's less likely we will see all of these incidents. And we are beginning to work with NMDPRA itself because we need to update the training that is provided for attendants at these CNG locations as well. If they're in a CNG location, the way you are going to attend to vehicles has to be a little different from petrol, a pure petrol environment, right, or pure diesel environment. So there's need for them to carry out visual checks, because we believe a mere visual check can actually prevent a lot of accidents, because you will see very quickly that a tank is fabricated locally and it's not a proper tank if you look at it, right? So all of these things are being done simultaneously to ensure the safety and sanctity of the process. Question from Adesu have arisen. You indicated issue of cost. I'm a firm believer, just like Mr. President, in the power of the free market. I think when I always use this analogy that in 1999-2000, when GSM phones were first introduced, I believe my own first SIM card that I went to purchase then was about 60,000 naira. It was equivalent of $2,800 today. If you use 1999-2000 exchange rate, you will not buy a SIM card for $2,800 today anymore. Yes, it's even free for most of them. But what we did then was that we did not go into the marketplace and start setting the price of SIM cards or set the price of telephones. We allow the free market work. When there's a huge opportunity to make profit, what happens is that the investors rush in and they create a lot of supply. And when there's a lot of supply, it brings down the prices. So we do not want to go in there and start setting price and get up into the same problem that we ended up with fuel subsidies, with petrol. What we've, however, done is that we've created 2 critical programs that attract investment into the sector. Like I mentioned, the conversion incentive program. Well, if government had gone out last year to say we were going to set up or award contracts to set up 200 conversion centers, you and I know that this year, it's unlikely that those 200 centers will be up and running. It's very unlikely, because to go through procurement process, there will be a long thing. And we decided not to go that route. Rather, what we did was we created a conversion incentive program to say, look, any small business or individual that wants to set up their conversion centers can do so. But government will pay for conversions that are done there for the commercially operated sector, which is a sector where 90% of Nigerians use commercial vehicles, be it Uber, taxis, as well as painted buses, as the rest of, as the case may be. So in so doing, we incentivized demand. We created demand. By creating that demand, the private sector went in and built 242 conversion centers. There were mere 7 of them in the country this time last year. Now we have 242 and counting. So what we are doing is that we are smart design of programs that incentivize investment instead of front-loading government fiat and trying to decrease price. I think is a better approach to bringing down the price for the common man. Ultimately, we've provided exits for those people that cannot immediately afford it. For example, the CIP program, like I mentioned, for those people who are members of transport unions, is free for them. For those people who are doing Bolt and Uber, they use their vehicles for both private and personal and public purposes, so we give them 50% discount. For public sector employees, we are going to launch a program in the next week or so, where we're going to sign that we allow them to get discounts and then also get the balance of it financed. All of this will generate economic activity. All of this will create jobs. All of this will enable price discovery. All of this will also allow private sector to come in. So we do not want to do anything that will discourage private sector, allows see government start setting the price of conversion kits. What we actually want to do, even to take this further, is that we want to get it to a situation where Nigerians are incentivized enough to manufacture these kits and cylinders in Nigeria, right? So once there's sufficient demand and we are beginning to see that, we're having discussions with at least 2 or 3 parties that are looking to setting up cylinder manufacturing as well as kit manufacturing facilities in Nigeria now. Because if government is incentivizing 1 million kits, my goodness, that will be 10,000 or more containers that we need to import if we have to depend on importation solely by itself. So by us doing what we're doing, incentivizing demand, enabling private sector to come in, we're also going to create manufacturing jobs ultimately in Nigeria by taking that approach. I always beg the press that we have to focus on telling the story so that people understand that, of course, Rome was not built in a day, but we have to start building it. And we have to enable it, but we have to incentivize the right behavior. If we go back to the days of setting prices, decreeing fiat, and banning and importation, all those things ultimately distort the marketplace, discourage investment, and does not enable the private sector to invest. The third question is around transportation for the common people and the impacts of this. And I think in some ways you also answered your own question by talking about the impact we had during the Yuletide period. But it's more than that. Like I already said, we have those vehicles now operating commercially and at discount. For example, we saw that the vehicles that we gave to Pacesetter Transport Services, the Oyo State Transport Company in Ibadan, I think we gave them 15 or 20 buses. And in launching their own program, of course, I have to note this. You have to note that Oyo State is a PDP state, but it doesn't matter to us. We work with all states of Nigeria. So I put it out there because some people have even accused us, we are favoring one place versus the other. And they deployed 20 buses. But on the route that they deployed those buses, immediately the petrol buses were forced to reduce their price, even though they are using petrol. So you can see that we saw, for example, they indicated to us that those routes originally were going for about, I think, up to like 7,000–8,000 naira per ride. But because the CNG buses started conveying them at about 2,500 naira during the Yuletide period, they were forced to bring down their prices to 4,000. So immediately, even those people who are using petrol vehicles benefited from Oyo State Pacesetter Transport Services deploying CNG buses on that route. And that is something that is real. But of course, we can only see this impact when it scales. And that's what I always say. It's not, if we do it a little here, a little there, we cannot see the grand impact. But when we do it more and we have more vehicles, now that we have converted over 10,000 vehicles in the last 3 months to CNG, you'll begin to see that we are concentrating that deployment in the 4 major traffic cities in Nigeria, which is Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, and Kano. Right now, of course, Kano does not have that gas, so we are still situating it in Kaduna. Eventually, we'll move a lot of that into Kano as we enhance gas delivery infrastructure to Kano. When we focus on these 4 cities that account for about 80% of Nigeria's traffic intensity, and in between them, you will begin to see considerable reduction in the price of transportation. But it will not happen overnight. Yeah.
As I'm talking to you right now, sir, you've mentioned Oyo, where you mentioned. In Abuja, I'm saying, what are the things you've done that has affected transportation that is also helping people know these are transport buses?
Sure. Yes.
In Abuja, 3. They started 3 from Nyanya to Bega. About some days later, it disappeared. So I'm saying, when it comes to the fact that the president came out of this because of the petroleum, the scarcity and all that, right now, if you were to talk of scale, has it affected price of transportation for the ordinary man on the street? Thank you.
Yeah, so it is gradual, and that's the point I was making. It is affecting price of transportation. We have 75 buses, by the way, deployed out of Abuja on intrastate route, right? So that intrastate route, for example, have experienced significant reduction because the CNG buses are going to go for much lower prices. They are priced about 30 to 40% cheaper than those of the petrol buses, right? But even beyond that is what we are going to do further. So, for example, we are working with the airport taxis, and we are doing their conversions currently. And we already created what we call the price reduction program, where as they do more conversions of their vehicles at the airport to CNG, and of course they now have 2 or 3 refilling points, not just NIPCO, but also NMPC in Guadalajara and the rest of them near the Abuja airport. They will now be giving us reduced fares from the airport to town. We did something similar also with the rail transportation union, NURTW, that's convening folks from the Abuja railway station to the railway stations in Kogi State, for example. We're doing that with the Akure and Ibadan airport taxis until they shut down those 2 airports. Now we are moving that program to Lagos. Again, the point I'm making is transportation ecosystem is huge, is large. We just entered an agreement with NURTW in Lagos, where we are going to even situate conversion centers within the parks in Lagos. And those parks are now, they're going to have conversion centers, because we realize that if we tell these NURTW members to take their vehicles and take 2-3 hours off, or 2-3 days off to come and convert in our own yard, they are looking at it like, I'm going to lose money. So we entered an agreement with the NURTW Lagos. We have already identified 4 sites. In the next month or so, those conversion centers are going to set up within the park. So that while they're even waiting for passengers and in between their work and all of that stuff, they will be inspected, because there's about 2 or 3 steps for these vehicles to be fully converted. And then the next step to us is that to make sure that in those parks, we can also deploy refueling infrastructure. It takes time. I'm not going to sit down here and say, oh, it's all hoo-hoo. But the reality of the matter is that it takes time. But beyond time is that it takes money. And government money is not the biggest participant in this. Maybe government has invested $50 million. But I've told you the private sector directly has mobilized $491 million in the last 1 year. That will also mean that once they mobilize the money, they have to do design. When they design, they have to construct. When they construct, they will have to install. Once they install, they will commission. So these things take time. For example, the LNG Arete project that we signed on Friday, it took us 6 to 7 months to negotiate that project. But that's over $18 million of private sector money directly being attracted into the economy, right? But we cannot say, oh, because it's not available right now, we're not going to stop the work. The work has to start. And to be honest with you, part of the reason why we are also now focusing on the large trucks, because we know that that also has a lot more immediate impact on inflation when it comes to inflation of food and energy cost. Transportation cost has varying levels of impact. But when you are moving trucks that are moving from Lagos to Kano, that used to go on 2.1, 2.2 million naira, but now that's on diesel. But if you use CNG, they are 450,000 naira. Then, of course, the truck guy passes on that savings to his customers, and his customers then are able to pass on those savings to the consumer. So there will be different level of impact, but overall, what I know is that the trajectory for us in this program is positive. We have the biggest achievement, and I said this at the beginning of this address, is that we have put this in the hand of the private sector. If we make this a all-government, bureaucratic-driven structure, I'm afraid that if we stop the program, then CNG adoption will stop in Nigeria. But now, private sector have seen they need to. They are currently constructing about 65 mother stations in Nigeria. Each of them cost about $10 million. So you have to, easily in that program alone, we are mobilizing over $500 billion into that sector. Daughter stations, we have over 150 of them under construction. These are all private sector money. Thousands of technicians being trained, either at NITT, Smedan, Naseni. Our young people are being mobilized into a new sector. Our gas that would have otherwise been fled are now going to be utilized to power the transportation and ultimately the power sector. I think all of these are showing that there are considerable fervor, there's considerable attraction because of what government has done and the vision of Mr. President. Dangote, for example, invested about $280 million in new trucks, CNG trucks. NNPC Retail Limited just brought in 500 new CNG trucks. So again, we are seeing BOA itself convert all of its fleets to CNG. We are seeing Coca-Cola. We are seeing all of these companies saying, look, we are voting for CNG because, again, all of this is helping us to drive domestic utilization of gas, helping government to earn revenue. I talked about government giving away these incentives, these commercial incentives, where they were giving something 50%, some free and all that. The reality is that government is the one benefiting net. If you consider the fact that during the fuel subsidy regime, we were spending 7 to 10 million naira per vehicle per year on each of these vehicles on subsidy that we didn't even know where it went to. But if we are just giving them 1.5 million, 2 million naira worth of kits to allow them to convert, to now buy government gas of maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 million a year, so who is benefiting? Ultimately, it's Nigerian government and Nigerian people that are benefiting. So I think to us, it's about gradualism, but it's about focus. It's an engineering problem. I tell everybody, as an engineer of over 21 years experience, I tell you engineering problems are not easy to solve, but once you solve them for life. And so that's where we need to be. We need to focus. We need to follow one course until successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Engineer is an engineer. We are not having engineering problems. Are we having administrative problems? We'll see how it goes. Second round of questions. ITV. Tribune. NAN. Reuters. Oh, no, Reuters. Bloomberg. And the last one. Business Day. What about you?
Okay.
Last batch of questions.
Thank you very much, sir. My name is Atta. I work for ITV. For some of us, we see you as a regulator, but thank you for that explanation of being a facilitator. The question I want to ask is, although with what Larry asked, you may need to check the buses in Abuja. We don't see them on the road again. so that when we ask this question, people see your face. So all the question goes to you and not the persons who operate them. The issue that happened at Karo on the 20th of March, your team went there and you came out with a preliminary report that it may be occasioned by brake failure from the Kubo declivity towards the Karo Bridge. And you did that, although the road traffic management still left that particular truck there, which is a bad publicity for you. Every day we drive past there, we see the truck abandoned there for about 17 days now. What is the other findings you have made beside the one you gave us on the brake failure? Because people are asking questions about the safety of the cylinders that we see behind the sitting position of the drivers in the truck. What other safety measures have government been able to put in place so that we can avert that disaster that happened some 17 days ago? Thank you.
Okay. My name is Salif Atojoko, News Agency of Nigeria. In the course of your presentation, you mentioned the PCNGI gasification project, which entails taking the product to universities and some other specialized institutions. And you mentioned that it also includes for electricity, not only transportation. But I know that whenever you have gasification project in some other countries, it means taking gas to the home for electricity, for cooking, and for heat generation. So what are the components of this initiative, and at what cost is it subsidized or completely incentivized for those institutions? Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Ruth. I work for Bloomberg. In your presentation, you said that you've attracted over $479 million in investments. I wanted to know if you have, that is over the past 1 year. I wanted to know if you have any goals of attracting more funding, amount of investments this year, and how much that will be. And also you said something around 150 stations, sorry, I'm trying to look for it, 150 stations that are being deployed. I wanted to know how much capacity that will add to existing. You said you have raised almost 3,000% in terms of capacity. How much do you see that 150 gas stations that are being deployed in the next 18 months? How much would that add into the existing pool? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. My name is Tony Ailemen. I write for Business Day. My question has to do with the issue of gas supply. We have, for quite some time now, if you drive along Airport Road, you find that at NIPCO station, sometimes for one whole week, vehicles get stranded because they don't have gas. The gas supply system is still a major issue. Now, my question has to do with it. What quantity of gas do we really need right now, this current moment? What quantity do you get supplied to you? And how do you, what are the challenges in getting gas to these stations so that, vehicles that are patronizing the CNG do not have to suffer so much? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. My name is Dr. Leon, Nigerian Tribune. I want to share the concerns of some skeptics, and maybe you will try to find a way around it. So, as a driver, if I install a gas cylinder in my boot, it will reduce the available space for cargo. I'm concerned about this. I'm also worried that about the ready availability of refill stations. So that's what I'm thinking. Would it not be more profitable for the initiative to focus on trucks haulage, especially in this initial phase? And from a sustainability standpoint, would it not also make more sense for for you to develop CNG compliant clusters where you already have much availability of gas, rather than this your effort to achieve what you call leap penetration around the country? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really good questions. All right. Okay.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
My name is Oche Egwa from the Office of the SA Media. I want to share an experience with you, and then I will also ask a question. Matter of factly, this question is from people that I interacted with on the street, so it's going to interest you a lot. In January, I was driving around Gudu, and then I saw a long queue. From one filling station to the other, I kept seeing queues. I didn't know that the program has succeeded so much. It will surprise you that I quickly joined one of the queues, thinking I was going to buy fuel so that I could escape the situation. Then at some point, I asked them, I said, it looks like the other areas seem to be empty and people are going in. Then they said, no, this is CNG. You know, this is gas, so you're on the wrong queue. I was overwhelmed at the level of success you have achieved. And I think you deserve a lot of commendation on that. It reminds me of what happened in 2001, in August, when MTN rolled out the lines. The initial prediction was that we're going to have about 200,000 people subscribing to MTN to GSM. But in the first year, 1 million subscribed. It's a huge success, and congratulations to you. Just making that comparison. But now I had a conversation with people who were on the queue. These are their worries. The first one is they said they couldn't travel long distance, particularly going out of Abuja. One of them particularly said if he has people who want to go to Sokoto, then he gets stranded because he has just a cylinder, on the car. Some say they have backup cylinders, but then I realized that that issue was not properly cleared. Then secondly, they said the frequency of changing their plugs was also there. That now you are using gas, that unlike before, now you have to change the plugs frequently. On the whole, a big congratulations on your level of success. And during your presentation, I know that the Federal Executive Council has also made it compulsory that government operational vehicles have to use gas now. You might just want to tell us more about the level of compliance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I said these are really good questions. I would take the first one, of course, from ITV, talking about, you had mentioned about the intrastate buses. I believe those are the ones you're talking about, the one that you don't see anymore, those long intra, that's within FCT, yes. So what had occurred was that we had gotten a supply of handover of some buses from Ministry of Finance, that ran during the December period. But those buses needed to be optimized. So we had them returned to the manufacturer for optimization. So I believe as soon as that is resolved, they will be coming back. But we're also expecting another set of supplies from the Ministry of Finance. So those are specifically designed for intrastate. But the interstate, the 75 are still in operation. It's just the intrastate, I believe we deployed about 15 of them. And we withdrew those, yes, because we needed to optimize for those. With respect to the CNG truck, that bi-fuel truck, and this is the point I wanted to make, that had the accident at Karu Bridge. People say, oh, it's a CNG truck. Well, it had the petrol tank and it had a CNG tank there too. Our own visit to the site indicated that the brake failure and the subsequent explosion of the petrol tanks were responsible for the carnage that we found there. And this was confirmed by a report that was sent to us by the Federal Road Safety Commission. The clearing of roads and all of that stuff is something that is at the behest of the emergency units of the FCT, and I think that we'll look into it to make sure that they do clear it. But it will interest you to know that 24 hours after that incident, there was also another incident at the same spot, right? And they were petrol vehicles, and there was a carnage. But nobody made noise and said it was petrol, don't use it again. The reality of it is that petrol is 20 times more explosive than CNG. Diesel is 8 times more explosive than CNG. If you're using petrol and diesel, you're already using the more dangerous form of transportation. And worst case scenario is that it is also not stored in a bulletproof or sealed structure, unlike CNG. You're sitting on just a can of a very explosive and inflammable material. You are literally sitting on a bomb. And that is why you see 9 out of 10 times when petrol vehicles get into an accident, they erupt in flames. I don't need to recall the carnage that have occurred in the last 6-7 months as petrol tankers have gone up in flames across the country. So for us, I say it very clearly and without any form of equivocation that CNG is the safer, more reliable form of fuel for your transportation. And we have it in abundance. It's reliable, it is safer, it is cheaper. So by all means and purpose, what we should be discussing is how do we accelerate the distribution of this necessary resource and infrastructure for the country so that we can ensure we extend the benefits to all. There will be accidents. It's still a form of energy. So I don't try to tell people that it's accident-free. Even electric vehicles do go up in flames. I mean, as docile as direct current can look like, it still causes problem. But it must be handled with specific care, and you must follow the protocol. But the reality is that in an accident, take between a CNG vehicle, and this is what statistics tell us, this is what the science tells us, this was the chemical composition of natural gas versus the heavy octane triple linked hydrocarbon that petrol and diesel are. That CNG, natural gas, single chain is much easier to handle than petrol and diesel. So I enjoin us all to focus on how do we make sure that more Nigerians utilize what God has blessed us with. And this is a reality. We're a gas country that happen to have some oil. Of course, it's much more, it's tougher now that we are trying to convert existing vehicles, but it's also cheaper. Is it easier for us to immediately bring in CNG vehicles that are manufactured originally CNG, or to start manufacturing them in Nigeria? Yes, it will be easier to deploy, but the cost of doing one deployment of a new CNG vehicle is what, $40,000 or $45,000 versus converting existing vehicles that we use the same amount, about 100 cars will get converted, right? And being a second-hand car country, the strategy of conversion makes sense until we then make a widespread infrastructure. Because with conversion also, remember that these vehicles are biofuel. So it means that if they get to an area where they can't find CNG, they can go on petrol, and then whenever they find CNG again, they can go on CNG, and then the cost average of fueling for them is lower. So I think this is a strategy that underpins what we're doing. In terms of NN, you did mention, Mr. Ale, about the impact of these on power. Yes, it is true that, in fact, what you realize is that the cost economics of setting up data stations means that about 60 to 70% of what will be utilized at that data station will probably be driven by power and industrial sector, not transportation, right? But transportation is going to bring that infrastructure. And so we're going to see the impact of having these gas infrastructure across our country, be it in the universities or even the LNG, LCNG facilities that is going to be occasioned by the investment in mini LNG at Ajaokuta. We actually have 5 of them being built in Ajaokuta simultaneously. We are backing one of the 5, that's the one that is going to be almost ready in the next 12 to 16 months. But the reality is that because of this investment, our power sector is going to benefit, our industrial sector is going to benefit, not just in the north, but across Nigeria, and especially our rural areas. In the university program, what is happening is that we partnered with the MDGIF. MDGIF is the Midstream Downstream Gas Infrastructure Fund. They are funding a private sector player to actually set up gas infrastructure in these 20 universities. We are now going in there to also provide materials, buses, tricycles, and conversion kits in order to stimulate the demand for those gas infrastructure. So this is a case of actually collaboration between 2 government agencies doing different things. We are able to provide materials, we're able to provide the incentives for demand, we're able to create programs that will allow people to actually convert their vehicles, that include academia and non-academic staff in those communities, so that the gas infrastructure does not lie fallow once the midstream, downstream gas infrastructure fund funds it. So that's what we are doing there. We are providing a lot of incentives on our side. For example, the conversion kits are being provided at deep discounts, and then the balance of it is also being financed by Credit Corps. So in reality, we're actually bringing 3 government programs in play at that particular, in that particular program. Question by Ruth from Bloomberg about the investments and what we expect. We've set a goal of about $1 billion of investment for ourselves this year. I think we have made appreciable progress towards achieving that. If I just take the 100 additional NNPC investments in data stations, that's close to $50 million, and the $27 million are rated. We're already close to $100 million in the last 1 month alone, right? So we continue to see increasing investments in the sector. So if I'm doing about 100 million a month, I think Mr. Tokwe Ajayi can prove my maths right. I'll be close to $1.2 billion by the end of the year. So yes, I think I'm confident we'll hit our $1 billion goal. We also have 150 stations that, as you mentioned, that those are in development, but those are actually refueling stations. The capacity you're talking about is the conversion capacity. We have a goal of having 500 conversion centers set up this year. So to have a total of 500 conversion centers at the end of the year, meaning additional 300 are supposed to be set up this year. So that will increase our conversion capacity from about 65,000 a year currently to about 250 to 300,000 a year at the end of this year. So it will also be a significant boost for conversions. Mr. Tony, of Business Day, you mentioned the issue of gas supply and the long wait at the current refueling station. As I said, it's a good problem. It's a result of the success we've had. In fact, there are some areas where we don't have as much demand, and we've actually gone into these areas to rejuvenate the demand. For example, in some areas of Lagos, Lagos had about 14 refueling stations, and we noticed about 4 or 5 of them did not have enough customers, and we went there and did what we call 10 for 10, 10 by 10 in January and February. As a result, those stations are now having an influx of customers as I speak to you. So that's what we want to do. We want to activate demand, and then as we activate demand and people get converted to the gospel of CNG, and then we now see private sector step up to then meet that gap of supply. In the case of NIPCO, by the airport, they are doing more. The reality is that it's not so much an issue of gas supply. There's available gas supply. The question is how much can you supply and the limit of constraint that infrastructure imposes on you. So if I have 5,000 liter water liter, which is about almost 3,000, 2,000 SCM of gas delivered to that site, at the NIPCO site, 20 times a day. But the number of harms that station has is 2. Then it can only discharge 2 points at a time. Exactly. So there's a physical infrastructure constraint that every station will have. But what we are saying is that for business people to make that additional investment to increase the 2 arms to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7, they want to see evidence that their investment is going to have a return. So they have to see the demand. So that's why I said our strategy is demand stimulation led. We want to make sure that we stimulate demand, and then the business people see it, and then they do the investment that they need to make in order to ease the life, the pains at the pump. But those pains are going to ease. Even Abuja, as I speak with you now, I'm confident we will commission at least 3 to 5 additional sites in the next 1 month, including the AY Shafa, the NNPC stations. All of these are coming on site. And as more options are being provided, as more people are getting those options, then it also increases the demand for CNG. But this is a departure from what we were doing in the past, which was we were importing poverty by importing subsidized petroleum, exporting jobs. We were funding jobs in Europe. And then we're crying out loud here that our budget is not being funded. Mr. President restituted the narrative away from that. Why are we funding buying petrol from Europe, Eastern Europe, and China when we have our gas here in country? Why are we doing all of those things when our budget is not funded? Now, the money that should have been used a month from 2021 to 2023, about between 500 billion to 1 trillion naira was being used to fund fuel subsidy. This entire program we are discussing that have created all of these transformational changes, including 75,000 indirect jobs and over 7,000 jobs, maybe has been funded directly by the government by about 200 billion naira. So about 1/5 of what is used to fund fuel subsidy for a month has created all of these transformations. Imagine as we continue to accelerate these investments for the next year and two. So this, to me, I think is the possibility and the story that we need to take out there, that we are now making better choices as a government, as a people, in terms of utilization of our resources. And we are putting our people back to work. Every time I'm always sometimes teary-eyed. I'm so pleased when I meet young people that say, look, I've left university, I've now trained as a CNG auto technician, and I'm now working in a place, I'm earning 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 naira. Some of them even studied accounting. Now they are advanced auto technicians and mechanics and engineers in the making. That to me is something of pride, that we are beginning to go into the economy, find areas of opportunity for our young people, open it up for them, and allowing them to come in to learn. A lot of these guys that are now technicians today will be the business people of the next 2, 3, 4 years. A lot of the 242 convention centers I talked about are owned by small businesses. They are not owned by NNPC. They are not owned by Unilever. These are one-man, two-man workshops, and they are making 30, 40, 50 million naira a month. And these are creating jobs and opportunities for all Nigerians. I think this is the real big story of the CNG revolution that is ongoing in Nigeria. We're not even talking about those people who are employed by the minibuses that are being deployed. We're not talking about the tricycles. We are currently in the process of deploying 2,000 tricycles across the country. But we have to be very smart about what we're doing with that, because we don't want to create even longer queues. Tricycles, it's not like they are refueling a lot, but there are a lot of them, right? So what we're doing is that we're rolling that alongside the refueling program I talked about, which is deploying the 25 sites. We've deployed one in Ilorin right now, and those tricycles are deployed in Ilorin. Additional ones are being deployed in Lagos as we speak, like I said, and then Abuja will follow. But as we have those tricycles being deployed, these are young people, some of them who would rather be doing something else or who are on the streets unemployed, now will be employed through our collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Youth Development, as well as other agencies of government. I think this is an important narrative that we need to put out there. Dr. Leon of Nigerian Tribune, you talked about the skeptics, and I can always assure you that there are no scarcity of doubting Thomases for any program. I remember that even my late grandmother was a big skeptic when it came to telephones, but it did not prevent telephones from being adopted by all of us. The reality is that some people, I even know my own, many of my older relatives for a long time, maybe till the last 3, 4 years ago, were skeptics about ATM cards. And some people said they're never even going to have apps, bank apps. But now everybody uses it, right? So there will never be a lack of skeptics in any program, I can assure you that. But now the question to you is, that boot space that you find to be so important, is it worth 65,000 or 70,000 naira? I said it when I was on Arise TV on Saturday. Okay, it's taking your boot space. Is that boot space, is it worth the 75,000 naira of savings that you will save if you go from Ibadan to Abuja on CNG? So people will make choices and be like, no, that space is not worth 75,000 naira. I will put a CNG cylinder in that space, and I will save 75,000 naira on my trip from Abuja to Lagos, right? And in doing so, they can even decide to also go and construct and be innovative and construct rack space on top of their vehicles to store goods and luggages. And this is not unusual. I mean, you have some rack spaces that are now even made in very beautiful formats that if you go to America, you see a Subaru, you see on top of them, they use it for road trips and all of that stuff. People will come up with innovative solutions. The reality is that ultimately, we are saving money. We are making the lives of the people better. We are making the air cleaner. We do not talk enough about how polluted our cities are as a result of the use of diesel and petrol. You will see a diesel vehicle and petrol vehicle, you see the smoke coming out of them. Those things are toxic, they are carcinogenic. Now we are moving to cleaner natural gas, which has 19% less tailpipe emission than what you have in diesel and petrol. All of the impurities that we let into the air is eliminated as a result of it. So I think these are things that should be celebrated, but we should not always talk about, oh, this one is. There will always be some people that will say they will not move. Even when horses, I remember I read something in the past online that said when cars were introduced, some people said horsemen were going to be put out of trade. Yes. So, but then we still have horses around, despite the fact that cars are now very, very popular. But we must make progress as humans, and we must adopt that which is more productive and is more beneficial to our society. Talking about focus on truck haulage is not an either-or proposition for us. We have to do it all. Like I said, the impact on truck haulage, on food inflation, on energy cost, on goods and services is real. But of course, it's also a little more complicated. Converting a diesel vehicle is different from converting a petrol vehicle, and it costs more. A diesel vehicle probably costs between $10,000 to $15,000 to convert, whereas a petrol vehicle will cost you $500. So for us at the program, we made a choice and said, okay, what is easy first to introduce? It's easier for us to, technically speaking, it's easier to introduce petrol conversion, and it also has direct impact when it comes to mass transportation. 90% of mass transportation vehicles are petrol, they are not diesel. Those, your Siennas, your highest buses, all of those are the ones that convey Nigerians from one part of the country to the other. Yes, and all of these things are petrol. So it's easier for us to introduce petrol first. People have now tasted CNG technology, they like it. So now when we now introduce diesel, and to be honest, with the diesel, most of them are owned by companies, right? So you see the likes of Dangote, Bua, Nigerian Bottling Company, all of these companies already on that train. What they've done is that as a result of our program, they've accelerated the adoption of CNG for truck and haulage. Like I said, my visit to Port Harcourt refinery on Thursday last week, alongside Mr. Jide Awolowo, where we are developing a program and an initiative around these trucks that are coming from on a port, that are going to Indorama, they have about 2,000 trucks that ply that route every day, right? And how do we make sure those trucks are running on CNG? And that is good for Nigeria. We'll do the same thing in Lagos port, we do the same thing in Warri port, we do the same thing across the country, critical ports and conveyance area, truck haulage routes, including Lakaji corridor, that ensure that we can move Nigeria away from these test and sole dependency on diesel in order to fuel our industrial and commercial sector. We can sell those diesel that we produce, we can sell it to Ghana and the other countries that God has not blessed with gas, and then we can use our gas, and then we can be more competitive on the global scale. The last question, Mr. Oche, thank you very much, and the question around the availability of gas in terms of the long distance, we think that we need to make sure that these routes have more facilities, refueling facilities, in order to make sure that you have confidence that, okay, even if I run out of gas, I can always have somewhere to stop. This is the reason why our current refueling, online refueling program, like I talked about, we are focused on those areas that connect this, what I call the Y. The Y being the inverted Y, Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, and of course Kano, and then the routes in between them. So we've deployed in Ilorin, we are deploying in Ekiti, and we're deploying in Lokoja. We're also deploying Aba and Enugu, and of course Port Harcourt. And that is the inverted V now of the Y. And then of course Kaduna, we're also deploying there, ultimately Kano. This will ensure that at least in between those major transportation hubs, when you now go in a further distance, you can be rest assured that you will find refueling stations along the way. In the case of the mini LNG investment, it will even now stretch that further. We now have LCNG sites that we already see Greenville setting up in Kano, in Katsina, in Meduguri, in Jigawa as we speak now. Once those sites come on board and LNG is able to get there, they can regasify, then people can have the confidence to go to their villages and travel over long distance with gas. But the good thing, like I already said, is that these vehicles are buy for. So even today, you can still go, only that you will not get the benefit, full benefit of CNG, because your CNG will run out in no time and you might not find another place to refuel. But they are bi-fuel vehicles, they are both running on gas and CNG, and they transmit and they switch seamlessly. And then of course, in terms of the availability of gas, the Gas Aggregation Company of Nigeria has worked very closely with us. This new, I think the most transformative thing we'll do this year is the setting up of that domestic gas infrastructure framework, pricing framework and sourcing framework for auto CNG. We finalized the agreement, NGML and GACN working with us, and NMDPRA, the regulator. I believe there should be some announcements in the next week or so, right? It will be unlocking about 100 mmscf of gas, and it will be a predictable way for any company that is investing in refueling to be able to source their gas and to ensure that it's always available at the preferential pricing. I think that's something that's going to really transform the sector and is going to give investors more confidence. The last thing you mentioned, Mr. Oche, was that I should talk a little bit about the MDAs. Yes, Mr. President has been gracious enough to give us that support. A lot of MDAs have been approaching us. If you look at this year's budget, you will see a lot of mention of CNG buses or CNG trucks being acquired by MDAs for their project. In fact, I was in conversations with the Chief of Defense Staff on Friday. In fact, I think we have a visit to him today or tomorrow. The military has been at the forefront of adoption as well as the police. We think that we do more of these and we have more MDAs engaged in utilization of CNG. It's also good publicity. But even more importantly, we believe very strongly that the President himself is a big fan of CNG and he will also be utilizing CNG in his transportation. That's why outside here we brought the presidential CNG bus. I'm sure we'll have a little walk outside so that you guys can inspect it. And in a future date will be arranged by my Egbons. We'll be able to present it to Mr. President. It's something that was donated through the PCNGI by those people who have the love of Mr. President and the love of this program at heart. Thank you very much and God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Engineer Michael Oluwagbemi. I'm sure you will agree with me that you have spoken so passionately and so adroitly about this CNG initiative. Well, he didn't tell us his field of engineering, but of course, from what has transpired now, I know his field is engineering management, if there's something like that. Yeah, on this one, let me just hand over the microphone to the Special Advisor on Information and Strategy,
well,
Mr.
My
Bayo.
duty is very simple, to thank Engineer Michael Oluwagbemi for the very incisive and insightful submission about the journey of CNG so far in Nigeria. I want to thank members of his team, Engineer Zayan Tambori Yabo, Tambori Yabo, who's the coordinator of regulations, Engineer Mayor Bright, you're welcome, Mr. Jide Awolowo, and Kene Shuku. Okay, she's there. And Engineer Wole Suleiman. Thank you for, I've learned a lot from this submission today, and I hope all of us have learned a lot. But I was surprised that when we were questioning Mr. Oluwagbemi, none of us ever said we wanted our vehicles to be converted to CNG. And I'm sure some of you have mentioned it to me privately that how do you benefit? The chairman of the Villa Corps has told me several times that he wanted members' vehicles to be converted, but nobody raised it. Well, unofficial. We should have asked him. Well, it's in the character of us journalists. We always cater for other people. We forget ourselves. And that's what we have done today. I also found that we never asked this man about the other component of the PCNG, what it's supposed to do. It's not just incentivizing the use of gas, natural gas, but also electric vehicles. We never asked him. That's the second part of the CNG, the task that Mr. President gave to the CNG, the PCNGI, to make sure that people adopt natural gas for their vehicles and also adopt the use of electric vehicles. That program is on. Maybe before he goes in, we also talk briefly about it to us there. But I want to thank everybody for coming. I think it has been a very exciting session, and we look forward to seeing Mr. Oluwagbemi again to talk about CNG. I want to say that this program, this CNG program, and the electric vehicle program